Okay, so last time we were working on 1G and 2G. Now this time today we're going to work on 3G. And before 3G they did 2.5, so we talk about that. And so here are the technologies that we'll talk about. GPRS, Edge, EBDB, EBDO, WCDMA, CDMA 2000, PDS-CDMA, and HSGPA. So these are 3G technologies, and these are 2.5. The first two lines, the middle two lines are actually the 2.5, and this is 3. So when 3G was being developed, at that time, CDMA was the new thing, just 10 years ago. And so all 3G technologies use CDMA. All right. So the first technology is WCDMA, wideband CDMA. The second technology is CDMA 2000. The third technology is basically another one. But basically, these two are the main ones. And there is one more, which will show up in China. But so we'll talk about that later on. So basically, all of these are CDMA based. That was the thing. As I said before, the whole scientific community goes from one invention to the next. Invention of the 90s was CDMA. And the inventions of this decade is what? Anybody remember the technology for this decade? If you were designing a protocol today, what do you use? Yes. So no longer CDMA, it's all WebDMA. Everything that is being designed right now has WebDMA. Okay? So we started from FDMA, frequency related multiplexing, moved on to TDMA in 2G, moved on to CDMA in 3G, and now moving to FDMA in 4G. All right. With that, let's go back to these two. And we have more coming up on each of these, so I'm just going to briefly introduce you these terms. WCDMA is wideband CDMA. It's called wideband because it uses a lot of bandwidth. It uses 5 megahertz of bandwidth, which is a lot of bandwidth. And it gives you 2 megabits out of 5 megahertz. How many bits per hertz is that? 0.4. So that is the technology. That was the best they could do in those days. 2 megabits out of 5 megahertz. CDMA 2000 gives you 144 kilobits out of 1.2, and this is third generation by the way, 3G. Right? So 1.25 megahertz channel gives you 144 kilobits. Actually, that number is somewhat misleading here because really what you're getting is this thing. Out of 3.75, you get 2 megabits. So 1.25, you get 2/3 of a megabit. And this is actually probably per user. So a single user cannot get more than 144 kilobits, but they don't get the whole spectrum. See, what happens in CDMA is everybody shares the whole spectrum, but you use different code, and therefore, even though we are all using the complete spectrum, we really use only fraction of it. So many users get 144, and I would guess that the real number is here. Now, the thing about this technology is that they had a spectrum for 1.25 in the previous version, basically in 2G. In 2G, if you go to CDMA 1, which we covered last time, you will notice that we use 1.25 megahertz spectrum. And so when they designed CDMA 2000, they said, let's at least use that much, which is already available. So that is 1.25, but for higher speeds, we can use more spectrum. So we can use 3 times, 6 times, 9 times, or 12 times spectrum. If you use 3 times, that is called 3x RTT. Similarly, there is 6x RTT, 9x RTT, and 12x RTT. So 3SRTT will use 3.75 megahertz and give you 2 megabits total. Alright, so that's also not very good. Get 0.6 bits per hertz. Right? Then there is a standard IS-136, which is a TDMA standard, and it gives you 2 megabits out of 1.6 megahertz. It was developed by UWCC, but I'm not sure whether this was deployed. I'll have to check that out. So these are the two major 3G technologies, the first ones. And when it was developed by ITU, ITU is the International Telecommunication Union, which is the union of all the telephone companies. So they started the project in 1980. Now this is 2010. Do you have 3G? Yes, some places. 30 years ago the technology was developed, and it took so long to deploy it that you have 3G only in some places. If you have noticed any news recently, Verizon and AT&T have been advertising on the television that they have 3G, and Verizon is saying AT&T doesn't have 3G, and AT&T says we have 3G. And the fact of the matter is that many places AT&T has 2.5G. All right, and so it's taking time. And now that Verizon has woken up and Verizon has woken up AT&T, I'm sure we'll get better 3G. But that's the thing. It started in 1980. It was called IMT 2000 project. So the year 2000 was in the name of the project that we will have this technology by the year 2000. This is 2010. To have one worldwide standard for a common frequency band for mobile networking, and even though they wanted to have one standard, one spectrum and everything else, but they ended up with several standards and several spectrums. First of all, they ended up with 3 bands, 900, 17, 18, and 1900 around 1.7 gigahertz, and some in 2.5 gigahertz. So there are multiple bands and multiple technologies. Europe decided to go on WCDMA, North America on CDMA 2000, and China for TDS CDMA. Alright, so that's 3G. And we will go into details of each of those. So what is WCDMA? This is what is European stand for. And this is a wideband CDMA, and it was proposed by European Telecom, obviously. It uses 5 megahertz single carrier system with frequency division duplexing. And so FDD. You get 2 megabits out of that 5 megahertz, and they use direct sequence. So if you remember, CDMA has 2 varieties. CDMA was also known as spread spectrum, and there are 2 ways to do CDMA, coefficient multiplexes. One is called direct sequence, and the other one is called what? Okay, like we use it in Bluetooth, and we have used it many times in the other discussion. There are 2 ways to do coefficient multiplexes. One is you use a defined code, so you send multiple bits per bit, multiple chips per bit. And the second one is, nobody remembers that? What is another method of doing spread spectrum? Yeah, frequency hopping. So Bluetooth uses frequency hopping, and that is CDMA, right? So this one uses direct sequence. Direct sequence means you just use a code and then you just send that code instead of a 0 or a 1. Alright, so we are direct sequence. Okay, and that's usually FDD, so that means they have a 5 megahertz down and 5 megahertz up. That could be 2.5. I will check that now. This is done by what we call a 3GPP. So there is a standard body called 3GPP, Third Generation Partnership Project. 3GPP has developed this standard, WCDMA. There is another body called 3GPP2, which is in North America, which has developed the other standard, is CDMA 2000. So 2.5G, so basically this is 3G, but since this requires money to change over from whatever these Europeans had with CDMA, it didn't really happen as fast as they wanted it. Alright, so in between they developed some other technologies which are called 2.5G, and we will talk about those, including HSCD, GPRS, Edge, and HSDPA. And HSCSD is high-speed circuit switched data, and this is high-speed packet access. So we stayed with the circuit for a while, then went to general packet radio service, which gave a little bit more data, then went to Edge, which gives you even more higher speed data, and then HSPD, HSDPA, which gives you even more data. So we're just increasing data rate because people want more and more data, and voice is not growing much anyway. Alright, so 3G is WCDMA, and everything else leading to that is 2.5G. Right? So you might see that there is an edge network, for example, here in the United States from AT&T, which is really 2.5G. And obviously in some places you might be able to get GPRS. I haven't heard that much here, but edge is built into some of the phones. HSDPA and are also coming up basically. So those are the technologies. Now let us talk about CDMA 2000. There are a little bit more of these other edge and all that coming up, but let's talk about CDMA 2000. CDMA 2000 is from 3GPP2. This is for North America. And in North America, they had 1.25 megahertz. They already had CDMA 1 in second generation. So they kept that same bandwidth. And if you get 3 times the spectrum, then instead of using 3 bandwidths, you just use the whole thing as 1 spectrum. So you get a system in which you get 3.75 megahertz. And you can't use the edge band very much. So you leave the edge and use the center part as much as you can. Similarly, when you get 1.25, you leave the edge a little bit and you use it in the center. So this is 1.25, this is 3 XRDP, and this is 6 XRDP. Shown here. So the more spectrum you can get, the more you can use. So 3GP partnership, and there actually it's not just North America, actually it is Japan, China, Korea, and North America. So these countries are members of 3GPP2, and it uses a technology which is CDMA with multi-carriers. So they just don't have single carrier. The wideband CDMA is single carrier, where this is multiple carriers. That means they divide the spectrum into pieces, and then they use that piece at a time. And if you have 1x, you have some number of carriers. If you have 3x, you have more carriers. If you have 9x, you have more carriers, and so on and so forth. Each carrier actually, okay, hold on. If you have 1x, you have only one carrier, which is 1.2288 megahertz. So you have a spectrum which is 1.25 megahertz, but you use only 1.22, and you leave point whatever left on the edges, guard band. So if you have 3x, you use 3 spectrums somehow, 3 carriers. And the guard band is 6.25 kilohertz between the carriers. And 2.5G operators can overlay CDMA1X now over CDMA1. And so CDMA1 is also known as CDMA 2001X EV. EV stands for evolution to voice. And so this is only voice. So if you have CDMA 1, you can call it CDMA 2001X EV. And you could also go from there to EVDO, and EVDO means evaluation to data only, and then there's the EVDV, which is evaluation of data and voice. So we'll talk about those in the next few slides, but basically you might have heard of EVDO or EVDV, at least because those services are offered here in the United States. Now again, we are going to talk about EVDO in a minute, but in China, they decided to have their own system. And that system is called TD-SCDMA. So it is time division synchronous CDMA. So it is CDMA, but it has two differences. First of all, it uses time division. So if you have to plot here and three dimensionals, what I've got here is time in this axis here, time, and this is the frequency. Right, and these are the users, multiple users. So you can see that not only there is we use CDMA, but different time, different users use it. So we divide the user group into multiple groups, and at first time slot, first group will use it. Second time slot, second group will use it. Third time slot, third group will use it. In a normal CDMA, everybody uses the whole spectrum all the time. Okay? And this is synchronous. Reason it is synchronous is because it is time division, and therefore all the base stations have to synchronize their clocks. So they all basically have to give the same time slots. Otherwise, we will be caught into the similar situation where different people are transmitting different power at different times. And all this, CDMA has a power control problem, so this one needs synchronization. If you want to need more, this is the website for TD-SCDMA4. You see, so previously we had two bodies, Europe and North America. Now we have three bodies, and this trend is continuing because China feels that they have a big enough market of their own that they really don't need to pay the royalty to Western countries for the technology, and they can have their own technology. So that's the method basically, is that this is their native technology for native customers only, because people outside will not buy it. Alright, 2.5G. So 2.5G, we know GSM is 2G and CDMA1 is 2G. So from GSM, you can take one of these three paths: high-speed circuit switch data, GPRS and Edge, which is in Europe. If you're in USA, then you can take one of these two paths. There are not two paths in parallel, these are in serial path. These are also in serial in some sense. These three are serial and these three are serial. First you do EVDO and then you do EVDV. So this is your evolution path from CDMA1. This is your evolution path from GSM. So what is HSCSD? HSCSD is high-speed circuit switched data. Right? So this is the first attempt to get high-speed data over GSM. Now GSM has slots. If you remember, we went through the big exercise dividing into time frames, dividing into frequency spectrum, and then for each frequency spectrum dividing into frames, which are time, and then giving each user a slot and all that. So over that, if you want to do data, then some of these slots can be given for data. And whatever number of slots you get fixes your data rate. So the problem with the data is bursty. So if you need right now, doesn't mean that you will need next millisecond. But this technology is circuit switched, so that means you get it forever. And if you get it for a minute, you have those data slots for the whole minute, and whether you use them or not, those are given to you. Right? So this is the critical circuit switch. On the other hand, if it is a packet switch, only when you have a packet to send, you will get the slot, put into the frame and send it off. Right? So this circuit switch. And you get some slots from 1 to 8. And if you get 8 slots, you can get up to 115 kilobits. And if you get 1 slot, you can just divide that by 8. And you might actually end up with 9.6 or twice of 9.6 kilobits. And then circuit switch data means constant data rate, not suitable for bursty data, not widely implemented. And so this was one of the things that some carriers did. GPRS, which is the next step, is more widely implemented. So GPRS is the next step for GSM people. And here what they did was they still do the same thing slots, but the slots are not fixed. And you hop onto whatever slots are available, so you just get the slots which are available. And so this is GPRS, is General Packet Radio Service. Packet radio, the keyword is packet here. So there are 8 slots for 200 kilohertz channel, and each slot can give you 9.6 kilobit, and GPRS allows any number of slots to a user. So 4 different codings are used depending upon the channel condition. So there are 2 variables here. One variable is the number of slots that you get. More slots you get, more data rate you get. And the second variable is the coding that you use. So if you get 1 slot, but if you're very near the tower, you can use very aggressive coding. And you can get more bits per hertz. On the other hand, if you're far away from the tower, you cannot use that aggressive coding and you get less bits per hertz. So that is what they're saying. 4 different codings are used depending on the channel condition, and therefore you can get from 9.9 kilobits all the way to 21 kilobits per slot. And you can get, if you use all 8 slots, you can get from 76 to 171 kilobits per second depending on the channel condition. And you can also hop the channels. For example, you might be on this channel here, GP2, and then you hop to GP2 here. On the downlink, you are here on GP2, and you hop to GP2 right there. So these are different channels. So you're not fixed in the channel, and you're not fixed in the coding. And so your coding and the data rate all depends upon where you are and how much other traffic is going on. All right. All right, so the main difference, what is the main difference between GPRS and HSCDA? The previous one, HSCSD. Circuit switch or packet switch. And what makes it circuit switched? Why is that called circuit switch? Why is this called not called circuit switch? Right. In the previous case, circuit switch case, if you got this slot, GP2 slot right here, you will remain there on that channel on that slot. Right? So you will have the 4th slot in every frame and only one, channel 1. So that is basically, whether you use it or not, you have it. So it's very static. Whereas here, you can move on as as more bandwidth becomes available. You might give you here, there, and so on and so forth. And the recording also changes depending upon your rate. So this is much more. This gives you a lot more data rate than the other one. Now GPRS supports intermittent and bursty data transfers. Point to multi-point is also supported. So you have to do multicast, you can do that. So for doing this GPRS, you need 2 new nodes in the network. So I actually should have part of the graph of the network, picture of the network. But you can imagine that in the previous picture we had shown the towers and we had shown MSC, which was Mobile Switching Center. Right? We had Mobile Switching Center. In that picture, behind the Mobile Switching Center, you have to install 2 nodes. You have to install 2 nodes. One is called SGSN, and another is called GGSN. SGSN provides the additional service that is required for GPRS, and those services are security, mobility, and access control. Access control has to do with what the class and channel you get. Mobility is obviously moving your data from one base station to the next. GSM, and the gateway support. This is basically conventional packet switch networks. So this is the previous things were just voice only, and so this one now understands packets and then comes to IP networks or whatever other networks might be beyond the wireless and before the wireless. So GPRS is basically an extension to GSM where some slots you are given for data. The next extension is called Edge. Again, GSM. And in GSM, you are given some slots, very similar to GPRS, but now you are more aggressive in coding. So the main difference in Edge is that you use this modulation which gives you 3 bits per hertz, 8 PSK modulation, 8 phase shift key. Okay, so you use 8 phases, and so therefore you get 3 bits per hertz. And therefore, if you use whatever we talked about, slot assignments, etc., plus you have this coding, you get 384 kilobits per second. Higher data rate. Alright? However, to get this coding, you really need to have a good channel. If the channel is not good, Edge becomes like GPRS, and GPRS becomes like GSM, standard. So depending upon the channel condition, you can get up to 384. Alright. So let me just summarize one more time. So what is the secret sauce? What is the new invention in GPRS? What is the key feature that they added to GSM? They just allowed the slots to be given right away, and whatever slots are able to be given to you rather than fixed slot being given, right? So that allowed the partition. And what is the new thing in Edge? Yeah, that coding. Basically, that coding was not there before. You saw the data rates that they were thinking in 1980s. They were more like 0.4 bits per hertz. You know, this is 3 bits per hertz. All right. And so if you talk about the data rates, with 200 kilohertz, you can get 9.6 kilobit in GSM. In GPRS, you can get 172 in theory and 40 in practice. The practice is different than theory because you are not always in the best location with respect to the tower. So there is an error rate and all that. So in practice, you get up to 40, and there is some overhead as well. You get 40 kilobits. Edge gives you 100 kilobits, and CDMA. And again, these numbers could change. Every time you look at the number, these numbers are different. So this is 474. On the previous slide, this said it is 384. So again, these numbers are not something which are very fixed. Theory numbers can be fixed. Theory numbers are basically you just calculate how many bits per hertz you're getting, and you just multiply the number of hertz, and you get the data rate. So this is a 474 number here, but in practice you get only 100 kilobits. CDMA 2000, if you use 3x, you use 3.75 megahertz, and you get 2 megabits. And realistically, we use it gets 384 kilobits. Now there are two factors here. I think we are mixing two things here. One is this is the data rate per user, whereas I don't think this is data rate per user. This is data rate per the whole system. Where 3.75 megahertz is the whole system, and then WCDMA gives you 2 megabits out of 5 megahertz, and you get 1 megabits maximum to the user. Again, this is the problem is that some of these numbers are more for advertising than fact. So they might say that we can give you 1 megabits per user. Huh? No, not only audience because that you are the only user. The thing is, generally you are not the only user, and there are many other users. And by the time you share with everybody else, the rate becomes much lower. It's like cable modem, you know, they have a 30 megabit per second system, and they can sell it as 5, 10, 20 megabits to 1,500 people, And they will get that if nobody else is on the line, right? But as soon as other people come in, the sharing starts. So all these numbers, the problem is that don't just take too hard on this one. The thing is, I haven't seen anybody getting 1 megabit per second on 3G like that. That is very high speed. Alright? And the system, whole system is 2 megabits. I don't know how they can give 1 megabit to 1 user. If there are 2 users, maybe they can give it, but there are 200 users. So, in fact, that is what is right now being debated in the country. Believe it or not, in the United States, if you read any wireless stuff, you will find that people are debating whether they are getting what they're paying for. So those of us who subscribe to iPhone and then to AT&T and we pay for unlimited 3G, unlimited data. There is no limit to how much you can get. But the moment you turn it on, you find the network is busy because everybody is unlimited. If you sell unlimited number of people, what does everybody get? And so there is a congestion of a lot of people having unlimited service. And that is required service, by the way. I mean, that is not required for having limited service. So now people are saying, give me the limited service, I pay limited, I get limited. But if you want to give me unlimited, then don't limit me. So that's what is going on. HSDPA. HSDPA. So now the next high-speed thing from the cell phone companies is this is called HSDPA, high-speed downlink packet access. And here they are going to improve the spectral efficiency just for the downlink because they cannot do that easily for the uplink. Uplink is more difficult. Why uplink is more difficult? Because uplink is from the little subscriber to the base station. There is not much power and there is not much, coding and all that. Whereas coming downlink, they have a lot of power and so they can do a lot more things. And also by going uplink, there is a competition because you have to worry about the power level coming from other users and so on and so forth. Whereas they're going down, there is only one transmitter. So this is for the downlink. So the first thing they said was, okay, we will provide you high speed in the downlink, although your uplink might be slow, but you never upload anyway, so why do you worry about that? So that is the HSDPA. Improved spectral efficiency. What is spectral efficiency? Spectral efficiency is bits per hertz. Right? We have talked about this so often, right? 3 bits per hertz. That is spectral efficiency. So they can give you more. How can they give you more? Because now we can use even more sophisticated coding. Up to 10 megabits in theory, 2 megabits in practice. Again, this is system-wide. Announced by Siemens and so on and so forth. And it uses adaptive modulation and coding. So depending upon where you are, they might use more aggressive coding. And it uses multiple codes for the CDMA channels. And then they have a fast physical layer, hybrid HRQ. So I think we talked about HARQ when we talked about BiMAX. So these people also use HARQ, hybrid ARQ. And if you remember, hybrid ARQ is in ARQ you just retransmit the same packet. Right? In hybrid ARQ you change the coding and retransmit the same packet. So with the different coding, you keep your previous reception and the new reception, and by combining them, you get the better data. Whereas in ARQ, you reject the previous, you totally throw away the previous transmission, you get a new copy, and if it is good, it's good, if not good, you just request another copy. So that's the main difference between hybrid. Hybrid is used at the physical layer, because you use the previous, whatever you received signal, plus the new signal, and you combine those to get the right bits. So they use hybrid ARQ. And packet scheduler moves from the radio network to the node B, base station. So the another thing they have to do for HSDPA is to move the packet scheduling from way back, that mobile switching center we had MSC, all the way to the base station. And the reason is the closer it is to the base station, closer it is to the air, quickly you can make a decision that, okay, I have this last available, let's just, give it to this user. And I'll have these packets going. So the thing is, so all the decision making has been moved to base station. This is actually the case in BiMAX and Eden. So the thing is, By the way, remember, WiMAX came after all this. I mean, WiMAX is technology which was developed in 2005 and 2005. And so these are, in some sense, dated. So now, all this scheduling is done in the base station. And so because it is done in the base station, you can do advanced packet scheduling, and you can adjust to match the instantaneous channel conditions. So you can see whether the channel is good right this millisecond and use more aggressive coding. Whereas if you are going to make a decision in headquarters, they just make a decision, okay, you give him start number 4, and keep him the start number 4 and coding number 3. Forever, and then until they find out maybe he has changed to better location, just give him this and that, right? So now you can be more aggressive in terms of decision making. And so that is what SSTPA is all about. And so let's summarize this thing. So we said the H was basically better coding. HSDPA is even better coding, but just in the downlink. And second thing it does is it uses HARQ, which was not there in H. So it also does better error correction, error recovery, let me put it this way. And third thing it does better is scheduling. So there are 3 things: coding, recovery, and scheduling. So these, what we were talking about so far, was the GSM line, 3GPP line, European line. Now we come to the American line. The people, how do they move from CDMA 1 to CDMA 2000? So for them, the first step is to do EBDB. Actually, first step is EBDO. So these slides are slightly out of order, but so the second step is EBDB. So first, let me go to since I don't have a slide on EBDO, I'm going to cover this in the same slide. EBDO is the first step, where EBDO is the data only. And what you do is that you use some channels for data only. Right, and some for voice only. So all you did was, it was very easy. Basically, you're using all channels for voice. Remove some voice from some channels, and then just give it to the data people. So that would be EBDO. EBDO would be evolution to data only. So you're not sharing any channel with voice and data together. The next thing is EBDB, where you're sharing a channel with data and user and voice users. And so that is what is shown in this diagram. This is one channel. This is one channel, and these are the voice users. Whatever is left is given to the data users. Alright, so this is EBDB. And single 1.255 megahertz is shared between voice and data users. And you can get up to 3.1 megabits peak rate on forward data channel. Voice users are usually scheduled first, and then the dynamic allocation of the unused BS power to data users every slot cycle, every 1.25 milliseconds. So basically, whatever is not used by voice people is used by the data people. So then, basically that's the secret sauce is, first is in EBDO, there is nothing much except that you recognize that people need data, and so you keep them all separate channels. So you have 1.25 megahertz for voice people, and if you have more spectrum, you just give that to data people. So it's more like circuit switch, just as we saw before. But so now we take the comparison of EBDB versus EBDO. EBDB uses one channel for both data and voice, while EBDO uses separate carriers. So both of them are fully compatible with CDMA 1 and CDMA 2000, allowing all backs of handoff between those two systems, because basically you can go between the systems, and so there's economical deployment, uninterrupted voice and data coverage. EBDB provides smooth coexistence between voice and data services. IS 2000 release 0 can be upgraded to support EBDB release C by addition of channel card and software upgrade. So this actually is meant more for the carriers who want to upgrade. So they're being told that you're going to upgrade, all you have to do is add this channel card and do software upgrade, and then this will work. Now, let me just explain some of these words here. IS 2000 release 0. So IS 2000 is International Standard 2000. Alright? And so that is your CDMA 2000 standard. CDMA, whatever the CDMA 1 might be. Now these standards have a release. So every year the standard changes and the release number changes. So it used to be release 0, 1, 2, 3. I think they went up to release 7 or 8 or something. And then they switched to the last 2 digits of the year. So now we have release 99. In year 99, 2000, 1999. And now we are back to release whatever, maybe 10. So this is the release people. So whoever had IS 2000 release 0, they can upgrade to EBDB by EBDB release C. So they also have different releases. And I just basically want you to get familiar with the word release, because whenever you hear these standards, they are changing every year. And so there is a release number attached to it all the time. To update to the same base station to support ADDO, in addition to 1X, a separate RF path from antenna through the power amplifier to the channel card is needed. And for EBDO, you need some other circuits. So I don't know whether that is relevant here right now. But the transition basically is if you have your CDMA 1, then you go to EBDO first, and then you go to EBDB. And for EBDO, you need a separate RF path, which means that you take one cable for voice and one cable for data. The RF path is the cable. Yeah, go ahead. Right, both need upgrade. Right, two things need upgrade. And all of these technologies, whether it is GSM, GPRS, Edge, HSDPA, HSCDSC, whatever we are talking about, both sides need upgrade. Is that the question? Yeah. The older will work with the older technology. And so what will happen is when you connect, then you make clear that I have release 1 of this thing. Then the base station will have to make adjustments so that you are only on release 1. Somebody comes up and says, I have release 8. Then we just give them release 8. Right? Yeah, both sides have to be on the same level. This is a problem. Actually, this is, see, I think there are some technologies that are very well done in terms of transition. A good example is Ethernet. Now, Ethernet, they have gone up from 10 megabit to 100 megabit to gigabit to 10 gigabit and 100 gigabit and so on and so forth. But the older ones still work with the latest one. So you can have a 100 gigabit, you can have a gigabit Ethernet switch, and you can have 100 megabit computers, and you never know the difference. Right? So yes, it's the same way here. Actually, you don't know the difference. I mean, here in the sense that the user doesn't really know the difference because the technology takes care of itself. I mean, the people who are implementing, they will take care of it. So these are the database for these EBDOs. You can get downlink 9 to 600 kilobits and uplink almost similar amount. And EBDB release C, release D, release A. So as the release goes up, the rate goes up. So now let's see here. Release C would give you 460 kilobits. Release D gives you 1.5 megabits, which is 1500 kilobits. 3 factor 3 more up here. The down didn't change. So they must have done something in release D to do with the uplink. And so that's what it is that when you say EBDB or any of these standards, there are releases with it. So 3GPP has releases, and this is similar to what we have in the data world in Biomax. In Biomax, we had 16A, 16D, 16E, and now 16M. For 11, we had 11A, 11, 11B, 11A, 11G, 11M. So here we have releases. In terms of deployment, obviously 3G is here, finally. 2 or 4 years ago when I used to do this lecture, we used to say 3G is coming. It was designed in 1980, but it's still coming. But now it is here. And this is the latest statistics, March 2010, which is this month. EMTS Forum is the one that keeps track of what's happening in the 3G deployments. And according to them, there are 3.3 billion cell phones in the world, and almost 80% of them are GSM. Right? And then a large number of them have 3G now. So 215 million is 1/10, 10% of the GSM people have HSPA, and 507 million people have WCDMA, not WCDMA, WCDMA. Alright, so that is CDMA. Now 3G is here, basically, that's the point. There's a cartoon. Let me see. I think the next slide is a cartoon. I missed a cartoon, but let me just show you this cartoon. So basically, there's so much of singing going on outside that the birds have adapted to it. Birds in Copenhagen are giving new meaning to the bird calls, and so they found, the ornithologist found that the birds have begun incorporating sound of a ringing cell phone tune into their own songs. Right? So that's very entertaining. Now let's move on to the topic that we were on. Okay. All right. So how do we summarize this whole 3G stuff? And this is a picture which really tells you the whole thing in one slide. 1G was FDMA analog, and there were 2 technologies, AMS and TACS. 2G introduced TDMA and CDMA, but it is still voice. It was still voice, and we had these technologies. We had CDMA1, we had North American TDMA, we had DAMS, and we had GSM. That was 2G. And 3G has 3 technologies: TDS-CDMA, WCDMA, and CDMA 2000. Right? This is 3G. And so in between that is 2.5G, and so GSM people can go to GPRS and Edge. The North American people can go to 1xDO and 1xDB. And from here they are moving further. So the first step the 3G people are taking to go higher speed is HSDPA, and then there is more HSUPA and HSPA and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that in some next lecture, future lectures. So that is on the way to 4G. So on the way to 4G, we have something called 3.5G. So we will talk about 3.5 and 4 in some lecture. But this is actually a diagram which I find helpful to really correlate what is going on. Okay? How is it related? So for example, North American people, well, I shouldn't say North American people, but the carriers which stayed to this one In North America, actually, there are both kinds of carriers. There are carriers which use GSM, and there are carriers which were here, AMS and CDMA and all that. CDMA carriers are, anybody remember CDMA carriers in the United States? Anybody know the name of the carrier? Anybody know the name of GSM carrier? AT&T is, right? And there's another one, which is European carrier actually, T-Mobile. Right? And then what about Verizon? CDMA and Sprint. CDMA. Okay? So Verizon and Sprint are following this path, AT&T and T-Mobile are following this path. That's why on AT&T network you hear Edge. Actually. So there, and you might hear HSPA soon, but basically this is where those companies are. So that brings us to the end of this lecture. 5 key points as usual. First is that there are 3 systems of 3G. One is called WCDMA. Then another one is called CDMA 2000, and third one is called TD-SCDMA. TD-SCDMA is China, CDMA 2000 is North America, and WCDMA is rest of the world. Row. Alright, so that is the rest of the world CDMA, WCDMA. GPRS and Edge is the 2.5G part for GSM people. So now when you hear GPRS and Edge, you know that that is for GSM line. GSM line has to go first to GPRS and then to Edge. What is doing GPRS? What was the thing that they extended that was not in GSM? Huh? High? Okay, packet switching was one GPRS, obviously packet switching. But so that was you could get this class any place you want, or maybe any place available rather than a fixed class, and also decoding, right? And Edge, what does it mean? Edge? Just coding, yeah, APSK. Now EDDO and EDDD is for the CDMA people, and what is doing EDDO? Basically, you just use the whole carrier for data, whole spectrum, new spectrum, so parallel spectrum. And EDDD, you don't need a parallel spectrum. You can use the same spectrum for both. And then CDMA 2000 actually uses variable bandwidth. Depending on you can get 1x RDD, which is 1x is 1.25 megahertz, and 3x will be 3 times, 6x will be 6 times, and so on. HSDPA provides high-speed access. So basically that is where we are getting after the 3D systems, is getting high-speed data. And now first it is downlink, and then they're working on uplink, and then they're working on the combine, and so on and so forth. Alright, so there is homework. Homework is to read one of the 2. I didn't read the book, chapter 1 and 4 and 5. I'll read the Wikipedia articles. If you can go to the library, you will find this book on the 2-hour reserve, and you can read these chapters, or you can just read the Wikipedia articles which are in the next few slides, and then this is a question to answer. What does APSK look like? Okay, so it's a very simple question. Once you find one of these 2 sources, you'll be able to find the answer. However, since next Monday is exam day, this homework is not due. Just go ahead and read that chapter anyway, because I hope that you are getting ready for the exam. You read these things, so that you won't forget. Because you see, everything builds upon the previous lecture. If you don't remember what was frequency hopping, this direct sequence, then you won't be able to follow CDMA, right? Similarly, if you don't follow this, then you won't be able to follow 4G if you don't understand what is 3G, right? So you can go ahead and read these references. That's all. Any question about 3G at 2.5G? And I find this slide as the Clearly, they puts on this slide. It puts all the words together in one place and explains how they are related. So first of all, I don't know whether you noticed this difference here. 1G and 2G were designed for voice. 3G is designed for voice plus data, basically. Right? That's the meaning of 3G. And what is your 4G? 4G is very high speed data. Okay. No question? Then we can just